Can't believe it's 4 years ago since I built my Virtual Pinball Cabinet. I had built it on the strength that Farsight, who at the time were producing the Pinball arcade software, informed me in an email that cabinet support for their games was being developed and was due for imminent release. Unfortunately, this didn't quite materialise. I'd spent a fair amount of money on parts like a real DMD, a plunger, etc., and I was led to believe that these would all work alongside the Pinball arcade software. Fortunately, Zen Studios incorporated a version of cabinet support into their software, which made the cabinet a worthwhile project, but it was based around using monitors, so rather than install the DMD, I simply used an old TV and kept the DMD in its box. With lots of false promises over the years and unsure of the direction pinball software was going, I'd kept my machine as simple as possible, and what was once my pride and joy in the dining room, eventually I ended up relocating it to the spare bedroom, where it unfortunately started gathering dust. But very recently, Zen Studios acquired the Williams & Bally license and not only started producing virtual versions of real tables, they also worked on improving the ball physics and made gameplay more realistic, all of which could be played on a 3-monitor cab setup using a PC. Having almost finished building myself a new woodworking workshop, I've decided to free up the space in the spare bedroom and set up the cab within my new workshop. This not only makes filming future games a little easier, it also gives me the opportunity to make a few improvements to the machine which are long overdue. So first things first, I've got to take it apart so that I can carry it and then reassemble it in the new workshop. So over the last few years I've received a ton of questions about the cab and the setup, so I'll try my best to explain everything in this short video. Because of their honesty and reliability, I currently only use the cab for Zen Studios games now, and there are a few changes to the cab I'd like to make. For example, I'd like to look at permanently fixing the speakers instead of these that simply sit on the shelf. The cabinet currently consists of 3 TV monitors which all plug into an extension lead within the cabinet. 2 TVs have a HDMI connection, and the one I use for the DMD has this blue connector which I think is a VGA. There's also this USB connector to plug in which powers up the iPack, which is simply a keyboard encoder. Most of the electronics plug into this extension lead, with each plug being labelled accordingly. Inside the cabinet there's lots of empty space. On the left hand side is the iPack keyboard encoder, which simply allows the buttons on the cab to be assigned a key to mimic. This is surprisingly easy to set up and looks complex with all these wires connected, but it's fairly straightforward to use. On the right hand side is the plunger electronics. This isn't currently installed as I've been using the launch button for ease, but it's something that I'm going to sort out this week. This is the launch button and currently being used as the plunger. The speakers are 2.1 and connect to this bass box which connects to the onboard sound card via a jack plug. It's also got this remote volume control. All buttons are powered by this transformer and is just a 5V and common connection to the buttons with a mains power supply to the transformer itself. This is something I need to look at making a cover for so that it's safe when installed inside the cabinet, i.e. no access to live terminals. Everything then just gets placed inside the cab, and all the connections I need exit the rear of the cabinet so I can connect them to my computer. The cabinet front is also locked for safety reasons. The mechanisms have been removed from the front as they weren't required. Over the years I've got a lot of questions about the soundtracks to my videos. I make the background music myself using the Midi keyboard and Logic Pro X. I guess it's like Marmite, you either love it or you'll hate it with a passion. Now this is where things get a little complicated for me, as I know very little about computers. The computer was built by Scan Computers in Bolton. Everything I list now is from the datasheet they sent me. It makes no sense to me, but may make sense to others, and I apologise if I get any of this wrong. The computer is an Intel Core i5 4690K G35i overclock system with a Z97P motherboard. It's got a 1TB hard drive, a Creative Sound Blaster Z sound card, and the graphics card is the GTX 970, which allows 3 monitors to be run simultaneously. I think it's also got 8GB of RAM and everything runs with Windows 10. As the computer is also used for other work, it's placed adjacent to the cab for ease, and all the connections are made externally. Here you can see the 3 monitors connected to the GTX 970 and the USB connection from the iPack, as well as the power lead to the computer itself. There's also a connection to be made for the internet and one for the keyboard, and the mouse is operated wirelessly. Powering up takes very little time unless updates are needed. The Pinball FX3 software runs via Steam. I can operate the cab either with the mouse or using the buttons on the cab thanks to the iPack keyboard encoder. The hardest part initially is setting up all 3 monitors, but the FX3 software has cabinet mode, which helps make it a bit easier to sort once Windows knows which monitor is which. The FX3 software is very reliable, and once it's set up, things boot up very quickly. If you have any further questions after watching this video, then by all means ask away. My knowledge is fairly limited, and there are much more knowledgeable pinball cab builders out there who I'm sure can help further, but I purposely kept my build simple so it's easier for me to understand and for the reliability. I boot it up and it works flawlessly every time. Purely for reference, I try and keep the build videos and the gaming videos separate now, so build videos are on my Smugworld channel, whereas gaming videos will be on my Pinball FX3 channel. I do have several improvements to make to this cabinet, but I'm just waiting first to see what further improvements Zen Studios makes to the software and cabinet support.